Stop me if you heard this one before. Nick Saban returning to coach college football.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. Great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, and also on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network, broadcasting daily across Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi, and of course on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. I am your host, Chris Gordy. Our guest joining us just about every week here on the show, our buddy Chris Marler. You know him from Locked On Gamecocks and plenty of different outlets.
And prison.
Covering the SEC. And Marler, we got plenty we got to get into. I want to preview some of the big games happening in a what I'm calling a pivotal SEC Week 12. But we also got the latest batch of college playoff rankings come out last night. But I want to start with the latest Vegas coaching odds for the SEC jobs, because look, I understand a lot of these are just based on throwing something against the wall, but sometimes movement moves because there are certain rumors and rumblings out there. So we'll hit on all four of the openings, but I want to start with the one that just continues to make me go, every time I see it. And that's the LSU coaching odds. I think last time we had these, Joe Brady was the favorite, the Bills OC, former LSU assistant. But Nick Saban jumps into the top spot now at plus 200, followed by Lane Kiffin plus 375, Joe Brady plus 400. I'm just curious. I mean, again, we've heard all the stuff. He's not going to come back coaching. He's very happy at College Game Day. But why, in your opinion, did his name jump to the front of this list?
I don't have an answer for that. I really don't. And I as being forthright as possible, like I live in Baton Rouge. When this first got brought up, there was very real talk and conversations that they had at least made contact with Saban. And I think your first call goes to him. And I said this all like over and over. You make the call no matter what, and then you figure out like what's from there. Like if you make the offer to him, there was that rumor that was like, well, if you give him 3 years for $20 to $25 million a year, that might be enticing enough for him to not turn it down. There's also the idea that if he did that, maybe he gets to pick his own, he becomes the AD or something and picks his successor as a coach and like blah, blah, blah. All of those things may very well have been somewhat true. Verge Osbury, the AD who was then the interim AD and then the real AD, then the interim AD again, and now the real AD apparently. Right. He was very, very matter of fact the day after these rumors came out on our radio station with Moscona, which was, they're not like, that is not going to happen. We talk every 2 weeks because they have a relationship. And as I said, I think you call at the very least to see if he wants to help with the search, because he does have a very soft spot in his heart for LSU ever since he left. I get all that. Talking to his family, they were very adamant that was not the case, that he was not going to be going there. And then having the AD at LSU shut that down as well. I feel like those are two good sources. I feel like those are very two good sources. And the fact that it's still a thing is surprising to me, to say the least. The thing I keep looking at more than anything, Gordy, is where the movement is on each player listed after him. Like, because Saban's numbers, he went from like plus 2,500 to plus 200, which is wild. Now, a lot of the way this thing works usually in Vegas for these types of things, futures or coaching search odds, it's very, very low minimums. So or maximums. So you cannot put a ton of money on this because you're not going to like break the bank on any of these for casinos. Right. But I do think it's interesting to see the movement from different coaches. Like James Franklin went from plus 500 down to plus 900. John Sumrall went down to plus 1,000 from like plus, I don't remember what it was. I think it was 300 or so. Brady drops as the former favorite down to plus 400. Kiffin goes up. Clark Lee goes up a substantial amount, and Dan Lanning goes up. I think Clark Lee and Kiffin are the only two really realistic ones that are listed on all of these. Brent Key is about to sign another extension. John Sumrall should be on the list. I think he's going to Auburn. It's just wild, man.
Yeah, it is. And look, the Saban thing is still a pipe dream. But in your opinion, just knowing some of the family and all that, is there a number that would make him say, Yes. Like, could LSU get to a number that goes, all right, I got to go do this for 2 years?
I don't think so. And also like, because like I don't know what he's getting paid at ESPN. I know what he was getting paid at Bama, on top of all the stuff that he also had at Bama. And because it's not just, hey, you're gonna be paid $11 million a year, $10 million a year. It's also like, here's all of the breaks you're getting, right? Like they are fine for life. All of his business investments, all those things, that family's not gonna be wanting for anything for a very long time. I mean, if you say 25 million, maybe it's hard to turn that down. But I also look at it from this standpoint too, where it's like, listen, I love Nick Saban more than any other coach ever. He's awesome. If we're being completely objective, Gordy, there's a Bama hat down here, a Bear Bryant bottle I got when I was growing up. I grew up in a family full of Bama fans. You give him 2 years to win a national title in this landscape. Does he do it? I don't know. I don't think so. Like that's like you're putting a lot of eggs in that basket to get to a place that you have not been in, like in the last couple of years, and then like I don't know if you can compete at that level because dude, what happens if you get to the college football playoff semifinal? Is it a poor investment then?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I think any kind of. I mean, because LSU they've not made the playoffs since 2019, since the Joe Burrow year. So I think any kind of postseason success is a win. But yeah, I mean, there's a reason why Saban left, because it's super hard to win a championship in this climate and all that. But I mean, the other part of this too is, isn't he still getting paid like $500,000 a year from Alabama? Like, he would have to give that up, and then what happens with the statue in at Saban Field in Alabama? Like, Nick Saban's in 2 years gonna go play coaching LSU at Saban Field in Alabama. Like, all those ties to Alabama just feel like why would he give all that up?
That part is the other part I think with that's so interesting with this, because I agree with you. I think there's a part of him that would like to right a wrong at what happened the way he left at LSU. I really do. I think there's a part of him that feels very guilty about what he did leaving, not in the way that he did necessarily, but just I think there's a part of him that feels guilty because he really did love it here in Baton Rouge. And like, for a while he was hated. Now it feels like they finally like him again and all that kind of stuff. But he said it this weekend too. It's like his favorite team is Alabama. His second favorite is Georgia because of Kirby. Like, and I don't know how much that matters at all, but there's no part of him, I think, that wants to take an LSU team and directly compete with Alabama. The interesting part of that, the 3-year part of like a contract that was like we first heard 3 years for 20, 3 years for 25. If that goes to 2 years, they don't play each other for the next 2 years. So that is something I feel like that door is just kind of nudged open just a little bit to where maybe it's a little bit more enticing.
So real quick to close out the LSU discussion, who would you put as the favorite right now? We're taking Saban off the list here, but I mean, is it still Lane Kiffin? Is he still like, and how realistic is that?
Governor Jeff Landry is your next head coach for LSU. I think
might have to be. Yeah.
No, the realistic one. I said this in an article I wrote a week ago. I thought it was Drink. I thought Drink's a really good, intriguing name to look at. Drink is now, I think, the odds-on favorite to go to Penn State, and his numbers went from like plus 900 to plus 2,500. So that feels like it's maybe off the board. I think that's an interesting thing to look at. I think Dillingham is an interesting place to look at. I love the idea of LSU with the financial insecurity and instability that they're going to be in with this Brian Kelly situation. They're currently like locked in, debating over, paying between 54 versus 25 or $30 million for his buyout. I love the idea of going to get a guy like Joe Brady or Kelvin Shepherd and say, hey, like everyone talks about the X's and the O's versus Jimmy's and the Joes and like how important that is. Let's go get you a fantastic GM to manage this roster and go acquire talent and retain talent. Let's give you $5 million a year because Shepherd and him are making $1.8 million, and that's a bump of over almost 3 times what they're making right now. That's for Brady. I'm not sure what Shepherd's making. I should clarify.
It's a couple $100,000, yeah.
So like you go bump their pay up, and you're paying them something that's enticing enough and competitive enough to where they would be willing to make that jump. And then You can pay down whatever you owe to Kelly, and you can reinvest some of this money that you thought, because boosters were in on the fact that if it was when this first got brought up, there was a conversation had said, are we in on doing this with Brian Kelly? Because if it's going to cost $100 to $115 million to get rid of him, pay all the assistants, all those buyouts, and then go find a new coach, is everyone on board to do that? Because we're going to be coming to you for money. That, like, we're going to be passing around the hat. And there was at least from one booster we talked to, that was what they were on board for. So if that's the case, I think it's a much better sell to say, listen, we need to get this roster turned over as quickly as possible, invest into like the money that we could have spent on a buyout and all this money with a coach that like a big name like Kiffin. Let's invest it into the roster and turn this thing around as quickly as possible.
All right, we'll touch on what about Florida, Auburn, and Arkansas. We'll touch on that next with Chris Marler here on Locked On SEC. Hey, but first, I want to remind you about our friends over at Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, you got to get your crew moving with Supply House. Order today. You can see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting on projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. If you need parts fast for a home project, Supply House, they got next-day delivery. That is a game changer. And their part finder tools and 3D schematics make it easy and save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. Join their free Trade Master program today, and you'll score some serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com. Sign up for free. Use code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order at supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. Jumping back into it with our buddy Chris Marler. And Marler wanted to continue a little bit on these open coaching searches. We talked about LSU. Again, these are the latest Vegas odds. They're not written in stone, but let's take a look at it. We did LSU. Let's take a look at the latest odds over at Florida. And they have got Lane Kiffin as the odds-on favorite at minus 300. I mean, this is like really favorite now. Eli Drinkwitz not far off at plus 120. And then you start to get a little bit longer with James Franklin and Jed Fish at plus 600. But Lane Kiffin to the Florida Gators, how realistic do you think?
I mean, if you talk to people around Gainesville, they feel pretty confident in it. He hasn't done anything to shut it down. I don't know if leaving Oxford is the move for him with everything that's happening right now. Like at either place, just the instability there in Gainesville. I'm mainly shocked that Scott Strickland's allowed to make this hire. That's insane to me with his track record, despite the men's national championship in basketball. I think that, I wouldn't be surprised if this was his final chess piece or chess play of like, I want to go fulfill what I view as like my destiny or whatever and go win at Florida. And then here's the other thing too. Like, I've thought about this a bunch. If he wins at Ole Miss, there's a lot of, I think, Ole Miss fans that think, you know what, that is why he would stay, because he's proven he can win in a place that no one thinks you can win at. There's also a lot to be said for the fact that if he wins there, there's also something to be said for him wanting to go for the next challenge and prove it. He's already proven himself he can win at this place. Now go win at another place that has potentially better resources, more fertile recruiting ground, which I don't think is completely necessary in this day and age of football, especially with the portal. But I wonder if it's like the next challenge instead of a stepping stone job. No, I've won here. Now watch me go do it here as well.
When you say wins at Ole Miss, you mean win a national championship?
Come close to it. I mean, I'm just saying, I think he's a guy that has found an era of his life where he is very tuned into his strengths, his weaknesses, and what he's learned from and grown from to be where the coach he is right now. And I think there's a big part of him that, like, you talk about the Kirby loss, the loss he had to Kirby in 2023 versus what he did in 2024 and how much that fueled him. I think he's in a place where he really wants to, like, push himself as much as possible. And like, if I want a natty at Ole Miss, I'm staying at Ole Miss. If I go to the college football playoff semifinals at Ole Miss, I'm staying at Ole Miss. If I'm bounced in the first round this year in comparison to these two jobs, I'm personally probably still staying at Ole Miss, but I'm not Lane Kiffin. So I don't know what's always going through his head, and the fact that he hasn't outwardly just shut it down yet, I don't think it's just posturing at this point. I think he's actually entertaining it.
Yeah, because he could do the whole. I don't know why you guys keep bringing up these other jobs. I'm happy. I'm the head coach at Ole Miss. I'm going to be the head coach at Ole. Like, he hasn't done that, and I think there's kind of something to that. One more quick thought on this: if it's not Lane, do you think it's Drink at Florida?
I think that would be my first call, and also James Franklin. Like, if you're sitting here saying that you don't think James Franklin is a good hire because of whatever he did at Penn State, I think it's such a short-sighted, dumb view on him in his career. Now, the other thing too, though, if Mike Norvell's job comes open, I think he is a perfect fit at Florida State.
Yeah. Let's get to the other ones real quick. Auburn, John Sumrall has kind of been the odds-on favorite for the last 2 weeks. This almost feels like it's going to be him. They have DJ Durkin at plus 300, followed by James Franklin at plus 500. I almost feel like these odds are the most realistic of any of these lists.
Yeah. I think it's a two-man race. I think it's Sumrall or DJ Durkin. And I think if DJ Durkin coaches well down the stretch, and especially if they win the Iron Bowl, he will be the next coach, like just point blank period. I think what he did on Sunday or Saturday after that Vanderbilt game was one of the most like politicking moves I've seen in quite some time, which was just him being like, we're not here to play close games. Like, we want to win championships and we want to do this and that. And it's like,
he was the anti-Hugh Freeze. He didn't say we're close. He went,
right.
We got to do better. We're not close.
That's what we expect at Auburn. It's like, no, you don't. You won 2 national championships in real life in 100-something plus years. One of those you were on probation. So, which is 57, by the way, just before anyone gets upset about the Cam Newton comments. But no, I mean, like, I think it's a similar situation they have with Freeze, which is, hey, man, we can probably get you for a pretty good price instead of like breaking the bank and hiring somebody else. You would be getting a second chance as a head coach. Your reputation's a little bit marred from your first go around, not nearly as much as Hugh Freeze, but like, we would be willing to give you a second chance. And then here's the thing too, man. The biggest thing I think for DJ Durkin, if you're Auburn, the biggest thing for DJ Durkin, because I don't know if John Sumrall all of a sudden elevates you to some next level thing as a program. Like, I just don't know enough about John Sumrall if he's able to do that. I know he's 7-2 with Tulane. Like, he's not like he's 9-0, right? But if DJ Durkin and him give you similar ceilings of where the program could be, then I feel like you just give it to DJ Durkin if the retention that he's able to gain off of this year's roster is significant. Because someone is going to throw $3 million at Cam Coleman. People are going to throw. Kendrick Falk's going to the NFL. Jay Crawford is a really, really good defensive back. They have talent on this roster, a lot of talent. People are going to come try to poach it with the new hire no matter what. And Durkin already said that. So I think that if he's able to have if you feel like you have a strong grasp of this locker room being bought into him returning, he's the guy.
Yeah, I just feel like if you're Auburn, you got to make the hire for the next 4 years, not just next year. And if it's Durkin, it feels like you're doing that for next year to save the roster and all this. But is Durkin the guy 3 years from now? That's what you have to be thinking.
Right.
And so there's a lot going into that. By the way, I had somebody ask me, why is Sumrall such a favorite for Auburn? The success he had at Troy's a 90-minute drive down the road from Auburn. He knows that area very well. Let's get Arkansas in here real quick. Ryan Silverfield, the Memphis head coach, has kind of jumped to the top at plus 200. James Franklin right behind him at plus 250. Bobby Petrino at plus 450. So I know there were some fake Twitter accounts reporting over the weekend. Ryan Silverfield has a deal with Arkansas. It's not done, but he is rumored to be the favorite at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good fit. Also love Franklin. I still say this goes to Petrino. But if Petrino, who very well could beat LSU this weekend because of how good that offense is, no matter how bad the defense is, with everything LSU's going through, I think that would be a good start. Dude, I mean, like, think about a world where I don't know who else they have left. Arkansas, I know, has LSU, and they have Missouri. Missouri starting a true freshman quarterback that was 4 of 14 for 36 yards going into the fourth quarter against A&M. Now, it's a much better defense. But again, if you win out, I have a very hard time that you're not able to sell the Arkansas fan base on nostalgia from those 2 years they had with Petrino. And I wonder if that would be enough for him to go there.
Yeah, I just feel like he needed to win a couple more games here to to really put the dagger in that, okay, Petrino's the guy. I just like, is he going to win the next 4 years at Arkansas? Like, I don't know. Well, Silverfield at least will bring you a rejuvenated, system and youthfulness and excitement. Nothing against Sam Pittman, but like Silverfield will bring you energy. That's what's so fun. Like, if I could handpick the coaches for all these jobs, I want to see Silverfield, Sumrall, Kenny Dillingham. Like, I want this youth movement of these younger guys coming in with energy and lighting a fire under everybody's asses. Instead, we're going to go with Saban and Kiffin.
Yeah.
It's like, let's bring in some young guys.
Dillingham not getting more run is kind of crazy to me too.
I like him a lot. I just, that's where I think at LSU, Dillingham would be great because he's opposite of Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly was content and okay, I've done enough in my career. Dillingham's like still trying to prove it. So I think he'd be great there. All right, when we return, Marler, we'll get into a couple games coming up here in a pivotal SEC week. 12? That's coming your way here in just a second. And first, today's episode brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The NBA is back. No better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And look, even if you miss the start of the game, if you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel, they got live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. They got games every night of the week in the NBA, and you can get in on the action. Combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game more exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Just head to FanDuel.com. Get signed up. Play your game with FanDuel. They are the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And, of course, they got all the pro football and college games up there as well. Get in on those SEC games over at FanDuel.com. Bringing back in our buddy Chris Marler. And Marler, let's take a look real quick. Last night we got the latest batch of the college football playoff rankings. Nothing earth-shattering, nothing really changing up top. Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, A&M 3, Alabama 4, Georgia 5. I think Indiana, they survived the scare against Penn State. They, definitely could have tumbled if that had happened. Texas Tech gets up there to 6, Ole Miss at 7. Texas and Oklahoma still hanging tough at 10 and 11. They're both still alive, but kind of almost on life support with a couple of losses. And then Vanderbilt still on the outside looking in at 14. If they win out, they will have a chance to get in there. Tennessee at number 23, but that's largely irrelevant with 3 losses. But what did you make of the rankings? Anything stand out to you?
I think that right off the top, you can make the case for A&M. Like, I was largely fine with the rankings. The things that stood out to me the most were this. Miami being ahead of Georgia Tech is total crap. And if we were allowed to cuss on Locked On, I would say a lot worse. Makes no sense to me. And it won't matter because it'll play itself out, but it still just, it pisses me off. I know it's an SEC show, so I will not get into that. Utah being ahead of Vanderbilt, kind of surprised by that. Vanderbilt, basing off of what we saw last year, I know it's not the same metrics this year. I know Utah has a loss to BYU and then someone else. I think it's Texas Tech. Vanderbilt has a loss or has 2 losses on the road to Alabama and Texas. So last time I checked, the 2 top 10 teams, including one of the top 5, seems like a better resume than losing to a team that's ranked directly ahead of you at 12. And then Texas Tech. And I think the Texas Tech game was at home. So it's like, I know one of them was at least at home. So Vandy, I thought that was a little bit weird. I thought Ole Miss moving down. I know some people thought that might have been a little bit odd because, they won 49-0. And I get there was an FCS opponent. I don't think it really matters. I think that that's one I personally believe if Texas Tech, the way they beat BYU, probably should have jumped them. And as long as Ole Miss is between 5 and 8, and they are headed directly towards an 11-1 finish or 11-1 year in the regular season. So I don't think it'll matter much. The A&M Indiana thing, if you would have asked me this in July, Indiana barely beats a 3-5 Penn State team on the road versus an A&M team that went out there and beat the crap out of a ranked Missouri team on the road, it would feel like that team should jump Indiana. I'm fine with Indiana being over A&M right now. I think they're probably a better team. I know all the metrics kind of point to A&M. I think A&M is also very good, but I think it's like by the slimmest of margins, I would be fine with Indiana being up there as well. So no real issues with it this week.
Yeah, and Indiana's got some impressive wins this year, as opposed to last year where they didn't really have any. I think this year they're a better team and they're kind of proving it. And my God, Omar Cooper, that catch was absolutely incredible. With a couple minutes left, Marler, let me just get your thoughts on a couple of the big games this weekend. 2:30 Central on ABC. It's number 11 Oklahoma at number 4 Alabama. How scared should Alabama fans be of this one?
Very. If you come out and you said that Alabama needs to throw the ball 50 times in this game, I'd probably be fine with it. I think that's like they're not able to run the football. They're not going to all of a sudden be able to run the football against what might be the best defense in the SEC and maybe the country, and definitely the best front four, I think, of anyone in the country. They protected Ty Simpson pretty well, and Bama does some things like very, very good. I've said this like over and over and over again. You win those 4 games against top 25 teams. You beat Georgia on the road. You beat Vanderbilt at home. You beat Missouri on the road when they were fully healthy. And then you beat Tennessee at home. And I just kept thinking, I was like, man, if Vandy doesn't fumble the 10, if Georgia doesn't have that stupid 4th and 1 play, and, there's like some sliding doors moments where it's like, well, they, if these things went a little bit differently, maybe they wouldn't have won all those games. But the bottom line is they did. And so Oklahoma coming off a bye will be very interesting. I think Venables has done really well with this defense. I don't think that's going to change. This is also not an offense for Ryan Grubb that he's been like putting up 400 yards a game. It's been pretty minimal. It's just been very efficient. I'm very excited to see what that looks like. But I keep going back to this, like Mateer, as good as he can be, the ceiling might be higher than any other quarterback in the SEC. But he has been 14 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, only 8 passing touchdowns. Near the bottom, he's 11th or worse in completion percentage, QBR, and passer rating. And he turns the ball over a lot, man. He turns the ball over a lot. So and Bama's no one's better in the conference than Bama at turning people over. So I think Bama wins, but I would not be surprised at all if Oklahoma comes in off the bye ready to go and has a really good game.
Yeah, Mateer's the X factor to me. I mean, can he move the football? Can they score points? Because look, Venables, they beat Alabama last year. He, not to say Jalen Milroe was, an absolute stud, but he just come off that breakout performance against LSU where he was awesome, and then they stymied him.
He was not awesome in that game against Oklahoma.
LSU. No. Well, I'm saying against LSU he was, and then the Oklahoma game. This one, Ty Simpson coming off a decent game against LSU, made some big throws, but be curious to see how Venables game plans to limit him. The other one, Marler, the other big game, 6:30 Central on ABC. It's number 10 Texas at number 5 Georgia. Playoff elimination game for Texas if they lose. We know that their playoff hope's still alive. Arch Manning's been playing much better. And Georgia's kind of, dare I say, maybe just played their most complete game of the season against Mississippi State last week.
You sit there and I wanted to get swept up in this, and I'll probably allow myself to at some point in the fact that it's like, man, is Georgia peaking finally? Because we have seen time and time again, one of the things Kirby does better than anyone else. He gets this team where at the start of the year, it's like, well, they don't always look great. Like there's been years where you start out with 42-3 wins over Oregon, but there's some years where it's like, man, you struggle against this team, you shouldn't have struggled against that team. And then as the season goes on, you keep getting better and better and better. And the next thing you know, it's November and they're just like mollywopping people. So that game against Mississippi State, I thought was really impressive because it was a sleepy 11 a.m. kick, perfect trap game, perfect sandwich game. You ran for 300 yards. You are not going to run for 300 yards in this game, I wouldn't think. Texas is very, very good. And Arch is finally playing like I think his best football of the season. So that'll be interesting to see if he can continue that because it's a Georgia secondary that's been pretty bad at times, dude. That part I can't wrap my head around. But here's the bottom line. Listen, Georgia's at home. They've lost twice since 2017. One of those was a double overtime game where they had 3 interceptions and lost by a missed field goal by 3 points. The other was a loss to number 4 ranked Alabama this year at home by 3 points. 2 losses in 8 years by 6 total points. Give me Georgia at home in Sanford.
Yeah, and Georgia went 2-0 against Texas last year. I think I'm sticking with them again. But, man, what a story it would be for Arch to win this one, and then they get A&M at home in the season finale to beat them and possibly make the playoff. I think that'd be a fun storyline. Give me 30 seconds, Marlo. South Carolina at A&M. They got any any hope to keep this one close?
The best rivalry game in college football. You're talking about the Bonham Trophy, which everyone knows. Honestly, that's better than any Paul Bunyan crap and weird cosplay they're doing up there in the Big Ten. I'm just excited to see an offense without Mike Shula. I cannot wait to see South Carolina in this game. That's really all I got. Like, I just, my biggest thing is I want to see them come out and play free. That's it.
Yeah. And Sellers is, he's not been terrible. It's just,
he's been better.
It's not been great. He is Chris Marler. Always appreciate the time, man. Thanks.
Of course, dude.
All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for checking us out. A reminder, we're simulcast daily on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network for any of our listeners who live in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. Catch us weekdays at 11:30 a.m. Central on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network, home of the New Orleans Pelicans and home of Locked On SEC. And again, thanks for making Locked On SEC your #1 podcast network. I'm Chris Gordy. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Go on back and see us.